Welcome to Clicks and Bricks Podcast. We talk about the entrepreneur mindset.
If you get one shot at this, what kind of shot are you going to take?
If we forget who we are, they're going to forget who you are.
You've got an adversity story that's out of this world.
Everything from that Main Street brick and mortar to that billion-dollar manufacturer.
Welcome back to Clicks and Bricks. Today I'm talking with Steve Frazier from Release the Coffee Cuffs. Steve, how are you doing today?
I am doing outstanding, Ken. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. We are super excited to jump into this topic on caffeine and addiction as a whole. Addiction has played a huge part in my life for more than, I would say my entire life. It's played a pretty major role. And caffeine is one of the more stubborn ones on our planet to get around. Before we jump into the questions and answers, can you tell the audience just a little bit about who you are and, not only what possessed you to write a book, but what possessed you to go into this, caffeine support kind of world?
Yep. I have been an entrepreneur for 40 years. I started when I was 28. I bought my first restaurant with no money down. And people say, well, that's luck. Well, there is a certain amount of luck in everything we do, but you also have to provide the circumstances for that luck. My mom and dad borrowed us $7,000 for inventory. The guy was going out of business. The bank, it was a regional mall with one of the largest landlords in the world. They all know he was going down. And when I walked in, I was the guy that was going to save them. And ultimately I did, because I was there for 20 years. And so I started out, I worked every day. At first year, I had 5 days off. 3 of those, the mall was closed. The second year I had 7 days off. And then obviously, then I started to build restaurants. So over the next 23 years, my wife and I built 5 more restaurants and operated them together. We were in a unique position that we actually get along all the time. And so even when we work together, and so that worked out great. There was some things in 08, 07, 08, 09 with the recession. It kind of dusted us. And so then we moved on to some different things. And in 13 years ago, my wife got chronically ill, and we proceeded to see 17 doctors over 2 years, and everybody told her to leave, walk out the door. We can't help you, just leave, which is fairly discouraging when they're supposed to have this Hippocratic oath. And this isn't a judgment on all doctors. It just happened to be, they didn't know what she had, so they blamed her. And then our daughter at the time started her own natural health practice. And in 15 minutes, she diagnosed Brenda with Lyme disease, which was then confirmed 4 days later by her mentor. We didn't tell her what to do. So what was wrong? So we did a deep dive into natural health. And when you talk about deep dive, when everything that she ate either could possibly kill her or make her extremely sick, you definitely do a deep dive. Okay, so because of the Lyme disease, which is autoimmune, which just kicked in a whole bunch of other stuff, no grains, no gluten, no processed foods, no nitrates, no nitrites. I mean, I learned how to make every meal. So several years ago, I became certified as a self-sabotage coach. And it's quite an interesting mix of the natural health and self-sabotage. There's 4 pillars in self-sabotage. One is there's financial, emotional, spiritual, and physical. And in the physical pillar, it comes down to narcotics, nicotine, caffeine, alcohol, overeating, no sleeping. I chose caffeine because it's estimated that 80% of the adults in the world drink caffeine every day. And I have been a chronic caffeine user. When I was in the restaurant business, I could have stuck an IV into my veins. It would have been easier than just drinking 2-fisted cappuccinos, right? Heaven forbid you just drink coffee. No, I had to have the sugar and all the other stuff. And so I determined that with the knowledge that I had and the experience that I had, that I wanted to provide information to people so that they could make the right choice. Because I'm not an anti-caffeine guy. I'm a pro-knowledge, pro-health. And so I wrote the book. I created a coaching program. And my role, my view, my mission is to give people the knowledge that they can make the right decisions for their bodies and their health on what they put in their bodies, which I don't believe through my research, most people know. That's where I am.
Yeah. I'm a certified cognitive flow coach, and I know just medically what's happening inside the brain when you're overdosing on caffeine. You're increasing your dopamine receptors, and when dopamine receptors aren't full, it is a very painful place to exist.
Yes.
if anybody wants to know why they feel like crap when they're with withdrawal, it's because you have all these dopamine receptors that are open and they're just raw nerves that are waiting for dopamine to hit them. And if it's not there, then it hurts.
Yep.
It's a wild ride. I'm sorry you had to go through what you had to go through with your wife. That's a big challenge. And it feels like times are changing, and we're getting in our government, at least for all of its craziness, it feels like we're getting to a point to protect the people of our country in a health and wellness way for the first time.
I agree.
And I don't like talking about politics at all on this show.
I understand.
But it does feel that way right now, and that's fairly exciting. Caffeine, though, it's a weird one, right? Because it's in all kinds of stuff, and it's not, even more so than alcohol, it's more accepted to have a high addiction rate to caffeine and sugar, right? I've been doing a lot of research on sugar lately, so
about 6 months ago, I was finishing up the book, and I'm drinking a Diet Dr. Pepper because I'm thinking, well, this is great. I don't have any calories. I looked at the can and there's caffeine in it. Okay. And I mean, I threw a fit to myself. All right. And then I had a 12-pack of Sundrop soda, Diet Sundrop, which I really like. It's a citrus flavored soda.
Yeah.
Turns out that Sundrop has the highest milligrams of caffeine of any 12-ounce canned soda mainstream. More than Mountain Dew, more than Pepsi, Coke. Here I am drinking this, thinking that I'm being kind of gentle on myself, and I'm just loading up with 2, 3, 4 cans a day, which then I can't understand why I'm not sleeping at night. So then I had to quit, and I wasn't maybe drinking that much every day, but I would drink it almost every day. But it's everywhere.
I drink way too much caffeine for sure. I know that. I love my Diet Cokes, but what about like natural caffeine, like tea or coffee? In reasonable amounts? Is that still?
Caffeine is caffeine, and it doesn't matter where it comes from because it's a molecule. And when it goes into your body, and you mentioned the dopamine, the adenosine will give you a worse headache than the dopamine when you quit.
Yeah.
Is the adenosine receptors. The caffeine molecule is very similar to the adenosine molecule. So when you drink caffeine in any form or eat it in chocolate or whatever, those molecules go into your adenosine receptors in your brain. And so what happens is you're not tired. Your brain's telling your body you're not tired. Now your body could be exhausted, but you're wired, right? And if you do it. And so then what happens is when you quit caffeine, if you cold turkey, which I don't recommend, okay, because I've done it. I did it 2 years ago and it was painful. For me, it was 2 to 4 days of nonstop headache, brain fog, fatigue. I called my daughter up, who's a natural health practitioner. I said, what can you do for me? Give me a supplement, right? We're always going for the quick fix. She chuckled. She said, well, Dad, you should drink a whole bunch of water because you're trying to flush, right? And then she says, and if you really want to humor yourself, you can take some ibuprofen. She said, it's not going to have any effect. Okay. You might feel better in your mind because ultimately the only way to get rid of an adenosine headache is caffeine because it plugs those receptors. Okay. And the reason you're getting the headache is that those receptors are wide open and the blood is flowing in there, just like you talked about the dopamine. Ironically, the more caffeine you drink, your brain actually creates more adenosine receptors because your body wants to rest because that's your natural way to go to sleep at night. Melatonin and adenosine, but mostly adenosine. And so your body says, well, this guy, he keeps giving me these molecules are plugging up my receptors. So I'm going to make some more receptors. So what you're doing now is you are actually not getting necessarily that buzz or high you used to get. You are now just trying to reach a baseline. Okay?
As with all drugs.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Amazing stuff, Steve. You've positioned your program as break free from caffeine without quitting life. What mindset shifts do people most need when they decide to quit or reduce caffeine beyond just the physical withdrawals? So what mindset shift do they need to make when they decide they're either going to quit or reduce caffeine?
Perhaps the most impactful question you might have or observation you might have today, because the physical aspect is fairly short. It can be anywhere from 12 hours to 2 weeks. I mean, there's some because we're all different. So whenever I talk about this, I hate to use the word generalities, but it is because there's exceptions to everything that I say because there's exceptions are all over. The normal person, it'll take at least several days to get rid of the headache and the brain fog and the fatigue. And the reason why you're brain fogged and fatigued is that your adenosine receptors are wide open now, and your body is saying it's time for rest. Okay. And you don't control this. Okay. You and I don't control this. This is our brain. This is our body, and it's doing what it's doing because we have a very, very fine-tuned machine here that we have managed to really screw up over the last 2,000 years or however 1,000 years, right? What the mindset wise is, first of all, you can't say I'm going to try to quit if you're going to quit. Okay. I was in the restaurant business for 23 years. I worked with people that smoke and drank. They'd come up to me, I'm going to try to quit smoking tomorrow. I would literally chuckle at them and say, don't waste your time and don't make me aggravated at you for being crabby. Because if you're only going to try, you're going to fail. You have to either quit or don't quit. Now, cutting back is a whole nother issue. And it's the same process though. And that is, you have to have a plan. Okay. And I'll send you, I have a link to my trackers from my program. And the first thing to do is to find out how much you're using. And you might possibly be shocked because you realize you're only doing this for yourself. So if you're lying, well, you're going to fail anyway. Okay. If you lie to yourself, you're going to fail. That's kind of a bold statement, but I think it's the truth. So first of all, you find out what you're doing. Okay. And again, you're going to be shocked because all these 1 cup of coffee, because you realize back in the day, 1 cup of coffee was 8 ounces. Now a cup of coffee generally is a minimum of 12, usually 16 or 20. Okay, well, that's 2 or 3 times the amount of caffeine. So it's not the 1 cup thing anymore. And then you got the soda and you got the energy drinks. You can just kiss your butt goodbye. Okay, I mean, you just mainlined caffeine because there's not only caffeine in there, but they put other stuff in the energy drinks that actually have caffeine that are not on the label. So first you track it. And then you have a plan. Okay. The plan is, and I outline this in my program and in the book that I wrote, Release the Coffee Cuffs, Winning the Battle with Caffeine. There's a whole chapter. And what you do is you say to yourself, okay, today I'm going to go down to 75% with caffeine, 25% without caffeine. So whatever the case, whatever you're drinking, they're generally a non-caffeinated version. Okay. So let's just use coffee as an example. So the first 3 to 5 or 7 days, you mix your pots, you put 75% caffeinated, 25% decaf. Next week, you go 50-50. Now your body is now becoming acclimated to less of this, less caffeine, right? And so by the end, you now aren't going to have that. You probably will have a little withdrawal, but not much. You won't have the massive headache. But then, and this is work, okay? Because another bold statement. Being healthy is work. Okay. It's hard work and it's not easy. It's very inconvenient. Okay. Because if you really want to eat healthy, you just don't go out and eat fast food all the time. You just don't go down to McDonald's or Burger King. You just don't do that if you want to be healthy because it's not healthy.
Correct. Absolutely, Steve. All right. I just want to go over a couple things really quick. Try as a fail word. Absolutely. It's in every recovery program I've ever been in. All the way down to Star Wars, Yoda. Try is a fail word. Winners never said, I tried real hard. That's a loser statement. The loser says, man, I tried my best and I still lost. The winner's like, I gave it everything I had and I won. So I agree with you. Try is a fail word, 100%. It gets you right off the hook. And if you can't manage it, or if you cannot measure it, you cannot manage it. So measure everything. Years ago, I was 24 years old. I was weighing in about 310 pounds, maybe 320. And the kid that I was working with, Andrew, looks at me one day and he goes, man, you're fat. And I go, no, I'm just big boned. I didn't even realize it. I was big on my whole life. And he's like, we're going to fix this. And I'm like, okay, how? And he's like, well, we're going to start tracking everything you eat first. And then, the next day by noon, I was at 3,000 calories and it didn't even have any clue that was happening in my life. And
right.
So just tracking these things, and I know it's exhausting, but there's lots of tools out there, and maybe we'll hear about one. But Steve, you have an 8-week coaching program that offers 8 months of support. How did you arrive at that structure, and what lessons about coaching and retention have you learned from implementing it?
If you really want to quit, you generally, like I said, the physical aspect is generally 1 to 2 weeks. Maybe 3 weeks.
Yeah, this is more about the business side. So
Okay.
How did you get that,
Hard to
the
get
8-week
right.
coaching program? Like, where did you, our audience is entrepreneurs, right? And they need to know about the caffeine for sure, but they need to understand how you landed on an 8-week coaching program with 8 months of support. Like what got you there? And what have you learned on implementing that program?
Through all the research that I did, I realized that even though people have quit caffeine, as in every addiction, and there's actually a Caffeine Anonymous on the internet, just like AA, just like drugs, whatever. So I figured that the 8 months, now what the 8 months does is it gives them twice weekly group coaching calls. It gives them 24/7 access to the forum, and so they can interact with other people that are going through the same thing. As an example, in the book that I wrote, I had the first chapter is called Anecdotal Stories. I originally had it as the last chapter, more of an entertainment value. As I put it together, and I'm going back to the program with this, just so you know, as I put it together, I thought this is this could possibly be the most impactful chapter. So I made it first because anybody that reads the book will find themselves in that first chapter, because they're all stories about people that quit caffeine. And some of them are just breathtaking. And so in those stories, and I've read more than, I only put 20 in the book. I've read 100, 200, whatever, because it's what I do, right? I realized that this is an ongoing thing. You don't just, I did a podcast with my daughter. We did a podcast on this. And she looked at me very honestly. She said, does anybody ever graduate from AA? No.
AA is a horrible program, but
Yeah. But you don't really graduate, because the only way to be successful in any of these programs is to just don't go back, right? And so sometimes you need support. So after our 8 months, we have the ability then to add a month at a time if you choose, because you may have created friendships and relationships with people other than me and my daughter. My daughter does Mindset Monday once a month. My wife does emotional clearing and motions once a month, because these are all integral parts of addiction and quitting something that has been part of your life possibly for decades, right? And so
a whole life.
Yes, correct. And so, right, I met a podcaster 2 weeks ago that she was born in Colombia. Her baby bottle was half milk and half coffee. That's how they raise their children in Colombia.
Yeah. I mean, caffeine's not a horrible drug. It's needed. It's got, its place in life. I don't think, for me, and I don't ever plan on quitting caffeine, plan on
Right.
integrating it into my life as a tool
Right.
and a resource for me to live my life.
Mhm.
But understanding it and understanding there's been times where, I'll have, a case of soda in a day.
Yeah.
If I'm really pushing a 16 to 18-hour day, and that's not good for my brain. It's not good for my body. It's not good for my team. It's not good for anybody. Right. So, it's really important. And I think, we live in a world in entrepreneurship specifically, being your best every single day is what we're all striving to be.
Yes.
And not getting proper rest and wrestling with that day after day will cause issues in your business. And
One of the stories that I have is a guy named Vince. And if you YouTube him under I Quit Caffeine, he's one of the top guys, extremely successful entrepreneur, owns his own jet. He's a health enthusiast, a health influencer, right?
Yep.
So, he's got his own pre-workout drink. His observations were, I couldn't make a decision without a shot of espresso. I couldn't go to church without a shot of espresso. He said, and what got to the point where it was destroying my business and my personal life, because I got to the point where I couldn't function unless I was mainlining espresso. So he quit cold turkey, and it was very painful, extremely painful. And 6 months later, he did the testimonial at 6 to 9 months after he had quit. And he said, my personal life's back. My business life has never been better. He said, I now wake up in the morning and I feel like I've had a double or triple shot espresso, because that's the way my body was intended to be, right? Now, this is a guy that's very successful entrepreneur. He now has more energy, because when you're dealing on natural energy, you don't have the lows. You just don't go down. You don't crash. And if you drink caffeine a lot, you know that you need to continue to drink it, because your body says, I want more of that. They love the dopamine. We didn't talk about even adrenaline yet.
No. Yeah, that's a whole, those are hours, several hour-long conversations.
Correct.
I know that the way that I can correlate that the best is that I really enjoy fasting.
Yep.
It's part
So
of
do
my
I.
routine now.
Yep.
And so every quarter I try to do a 3-day fast. And I try because I do fail a lot at it. So a 72 hour, maybe it's every 4 or 6 months, but
Yep.
there's a window of time in a 72-hour fast, and it's somewhere between 40 and 60 hours that you're just running on pure body human energy, and when your body's burning at its optimal rate. And I can tell you the powerfulness that you feel and the amount of energy you have, it's something that I've had to start scheduling those hours around. I want to be really trying to do something amazing in that time frame.
I do a 72-hour once a month.
That's impressive. I'm not quite there yet. I do a 24 every week, and then I save my 72s. They're a little more challenging for me, but
Yes, they are. They're challenging for everyone, Ken.
yeah. I frequently go 40, but when writing Release the Coffee Cuffs, Winning the Battle with Caffeine, what research or expert input surprised you most, and how did you incorporate that into your coaching program?
There's two main things. One is sleep. I knew sleep was important, never realized how important it actually is and what happens when you sleep. And I learned things to just open my eyes to just the simple fact is if you're drinking caffeine daily, your circadian rhythm is off. That's a fact. People can argue with me, but the bottom line is it's in your body. It's the chemistry of your body, and caffeine delays stage 3 sleep and shortens it. And it also delays stage 4 sleep and shortens it. Stage 3 is where we heal. And so if you're a man, that's where you produce testosterone. If you're a woman, you're producing as estrogen, and your body, your cells are healing. And stage 4 is REM sleep. That's deep sleep, where you dream and your unconscious is working, and it's shortened, and it's also activated not as fast. What I didn't know is that of the 4 stages of sleep, those 4 stages happen 4 to 8 times a night. Okay, so you don't just go to sleep and go to stage 1. Stage 2 is the longest one. That's about 40 to 50%. And then you got stage 3, stage 4. That happens 4 to 8 times a night. Well, if you're not getting that good stage 3 and stage 4, and you're only getting stage 2, you wake up in the morning and you're tired and you can't understand why. So what do? You go to the coffee pot. And then the other thing that I learned is the incredible impact of caffeine on women's menstrual cycles and on be able to conceive and what happens to the fetus. And that's, I'll tell you my whole mission statement right now, which I'll tell you at the end, is that if I can get one woman that's pregnant to stop drinking caffeine while she's pregnant and she has a healthy child, I've been successful in everything that I've done. Okay, one life, because I've had 2 miscarriages and a stillbirth in my family. Now you realize I will never know. Okay, this is permanently delayed gratification because I'll never know. However, if I can spread my message far and wide, somebody's going to stop. Because I know one thing, and you know this, Ken, because you talked about some of the things you do. We all have free will and we all have free won't. And we can't make anybody do anything.
No, we cannot.
No matter how hard we try.
Steve, automation and delegation are keys to scaling any coaching business. What parts of Release the Coffee Cuffs have you automated or delegated, and what challenges did you face doing that?
Well, I'm blessed with a great team. My wife and daughter are on my team. They're both trained professionals. They know what they're doing. So they help me monitor the forum. They have their input. And it's unique because each one of us has a different perspective on everything, right? And so if somebody comes in with a question, they can give me, I might say something and my daughter or wife may sound not completely different, but a completely different perspective on that. And that has allowed me to give what I believe is a really added benefit to my program. Okay. I mean, my wife drank caffeine. She quit 30 years ago because she had a negative impact. My daughter still drinks caffeine every day, and that do I love her? Yes. Do I talk to her? Yes. I just took a book to my neighbor last night and she looked at me and you know what the first thing she said to me? You're not going to get me to quit drinking coffee. And I looked at her, I said, I have no intention of getting you to quit drinking coffee. I mean, it's not that I don't care about you, but it's your decision. It's not my decision. And so it's all perspective, right? But yeah. I'm like the salmon swimming upstream dealing with this topic. Because nobody rarely does anybody ever see a negative effect of caffeine when there are some.
Yeah, there are a lot. As a high performance coach, and I coach youth boxing
Okay.
at a pretty high level, and it plays a significant factor. There's no doubt about it. But you're right; it doesn't have this. There's no social stigma to caffeine at all.
No.
So if the people that I deal with on a frequent basis that are conscious of it are elite athletes.
Yes.
Anybody outside of the elite athlete world doesn't really seem to concern themselves too much from my perspective, but it does play a factor. Like I know that we definitely tell the kids just water and chicken and broccoli, right? Is kind of what we tell them. Steve, as someone who speaks, writes, coaches, and runs a program and community, how do you manage your own energy, focus, and rest to avoid compromising what you teach?
Well, I stopped drinking caffeine. In fact, this past weekend, I drove to Florida and back. It's a 25-hour drive.
Yeah.
First time in my 68 years that I went to Florida and back and didn't have any caffeine. And after driving 12 and a half hours, I always had the excuse that I need this to stay awake. I need this because I like caffeine. Okay. Don't misunderstand me. I get the dopamine hit. I get the adrenaline hit. I get the adenosine hit. I'm high. I get high. And I walked into the hotel room the second night when we drove 12 and a half hours, and I do all the driving. And I was in the elevator at 11 o'clock at night, and I looked at my wife and I said, this is the best I've ever felt after driving 12 and a half hours in my whole life. Because I didn't crash. And then I went to sleep, which normally I would lay in bed for an hour or two because I'm sensitive to caffeine, and everybody's different. I mean, there's people that can drink an espresso at 10 o'clock at night and go to sleep at 11 and doesn't bother. Now it's messing with their sleep, their deep sleep, but that doesn't mean they're going to go to sleep. So, but because we're all unique, and there's a gene there, there's an enzyme that we may or may not ever get into, but
yeah. I recently drove to Phoenix, Arizona from St. Louis, and it's a 24-hour drive. And I did the whole thing straight through. And it's the first time I ever did a fast while driving.
Oh, boy. Wow.
And because normally I've got the snacks there and I'm just eating snacks the whole time. And it was pleasant. I was shocked. I was surprised that I was able to do that. But I did it, and it was fun. Looking ahead, what are your plans for growing Release the Coffee Cuffs, new programs, partnerships, content, or maybe delivering your coaching in new formats? What do you see as the biggest opportunities and risks?
The biggest opportunity that I have is to speak to people that would like to hear this, because everybody doesn't want to hear this, right? I mean, let's face it, most of the people, because of cognitive dissonance, and I'm sure you're familiar with that. You don't want to hear things that you've been programmed all your life to believe is the truth. And the truth is that there's very little positive health impacts of caffeine long-term. Short-term, yep, gives you a buzz. Absolutely. No question. So I would like to be able to speak to groups of people that will take the information and then they can decide. Because again, nobody talks about this. It's $1 trillion a year business. This puts big tobacco to shame. Back in that 600 billion a year days, $1 trillion, so that's the battle that I have. My goal, my mission is to talk to people. Again, my micro mission is to speak to groups, to people that, as an example, March of Dimes, okay, birth defects, okay, caffeine is documented to cause low birth weight, some miscarriages, and some stillbirths. Now, not all of them, maybe not even a large percentage, but if you're the person that it happens to, it really affects you, right? And so that's where my growth potential is. Okay. I'm actually, as we speak, I'm adding 2 smaller programs onto my Release the Coffee Cuffs coaching program, because I have a large program. I have one for families, literally where 3 to 6 people can join at a reduced price and quit together. And then another one for just an individual. But then I'm going to add one with just a $99 version of, here's 4 weeks of videos for you. I'll walk you through it. You don't get to talk to me, because for $99, you don't get to talk to me. Okay. Then for $199, you get to talk to me twice, once for an hour, once for a half an hour. Okay. Because my time is valuable and I have to charge for it, just like every other coach. Before I did this, I did a coaching business, and it was called New Bizpreneur, and it was for new entrepreneurs. It was a great program. And I didn't listen to anything that I wrote in my business plan. Okay. Because I had a target audience of new businesses, but I had no idea to get to them. And it cost me just in coaching fees, $14,000 to have people do nothing for me. So as a new entrepreneur, anybody that is an entrepreneur that's listening to this, all coaches aren't created equal. Okay. I mean, and I happen to unfortunately find the low hanging fruit. And so, get to know the person you're going to coach with. If they don't want to talk to you for a little while before you're going to give them money, all they want is your money. They don't want to help you. I mean, I'm maybe going out on a limb here, but that's my opinion. Okay. But,
I'm a boxing coach, and I'll tell you that you have to, before I take you on, before I become your boxing coach, you have to be like 8 weeks with me just before I'll consider it. Then you got to take a 4-week course, and then I'll be your coach. I don't just coach anybody. I have a couple people that I coach in sobriety as well, but it's very, very, very small set of people, and it's very intimate situation, right?
Right.
You have to tell your coach things that you might not even tell your therapist if you really you want to get the full benefit of the coaching. And if you're not coachable, then it doesn't matter, right? If you're not willing to accept the information, my wife says a lot of times, she's like, they never told us that older generation never told us about these things in life. I'm like, well, they probably told us, but we just couldn't listen at the time.
Yeah.
We couldn't hear it, right? So you have to be ready and open and honest with yourself before a coach is going to even help you at the level which a coach can help you. So it's pretty wild. Steve, as we wrap up the show, Diary of a CEO is my favorite podcast. And Steven asks a question. He asks his guest to write a question for the next guest after every episode. Are you ready for this question?
I'm ready.
Paul Brunson asks, what are you missing most in your life?
Wow. Can I get back to you in like an hour? No, I'm teasing. More money. That's the only thing. I have incredibly fulfilled life. I have a great relationship with my wife and family, and I have a very small circle of friends because most of them were not worthy of my friendship. And so the only thing that I can cap this off with is more money. And that sounds, I don't know, arrogant. I don't know how it sounds. That's the only thing that's missing. And ironically, as you asked me that question, if you would have asked my wife that question, she would have said the same thing, because we have this conversation all the time. We have a great life. We've been together for 36 years. Again, we worked together. We got along, and we still get along. We still love each other. We just spent 2 weeks in Florida. When we spend 25 hours in the car together and we still talk to each other, we're getting along, right? So, and a lot of people don't want to do that, much less even try it. So I guess that would be the one thing, and as a finalized thing for the coffee cuffs, the way I approach this particular program, I got some advice from my son and daughter-in-law who have an extremely successful online coaching business for losing weight. They just repackaged it. She's got 1 million followers on Instagram, and they make a lot of money.
It's a good business.
They told me, so what I decided to do is don't just have one revenue stream, right? So now I have multiple revenue streams. So I have a book, I have a coaching program, I have a speaking business. Are they all going to be extremely successful? I hope so. But realistically, all I need is one to be relatively successful. And I'm right where I want to be, because as an entrepreneur, and you know this, and you said you just drove, I'm leaving for Sedona tomorrow morning, and we have a 6-day retreat with 17 women and me. Okay. I
don't know if you're lucky or terrified. We did excited or terrified for you.
We did it with 13 last year, so it's okay. And I do self-sabotage. My wife does emotional clearing. My daughter does mindset work the whole time. And you've been to Sedona. It's just absolutely beautiful. And we rent a huge Airbnb. We're all in the same place.
Nice.
I have a wonderful life. I like the ability to be able to do it wherever I want to do it. Again, I did 5 podcasts while I was in Florida.
Right.
I can do that because all I had to take was my mic and my camera and my laptop.
Absolutely. We live in a beautiful time. There's a lot of scary stuff, but being able to travel and the nomad lifestyle, the digital nomad, whatever you want to call it, is a refreshing thing. And I definitely have a home base here in St. Louis, but I love to be able to go other places and explore and do wild stuff. For me, what I'm missing most in my life, I would say, I'm wildly fortunate, man. I get to connect with a lot of people, but that's what I like to do. I like connections and meeting new people. I want more and more of that. But when I sat and thought about it for a little bit, I'm missing time. I want more time.
Yep.
That's what I want. I've finally come to the point where I get to play with the existence instead of feel like it was given to me. And it's a beautiful thing. And, I hope I can help other people get there in their life because it is beautiful. And then you sit back and you think, wow, what do I want? I want more time to do the stuff that I love doing. And
Right. Yep.
that's really it. And if you're out there in the audience and you're listening and you want to chime in, what are the things that you're missing in life? It takes time to think about it. Once you have a happy family and all those things and you're connecting with other people, that is wealth. And
Yes,
at
it
the end
is.
of the day,
And when
that's
it comes
really,
to that, I'm extremely wealthy there.
yeah, that's what we're working for, is to have those things and protect those things. And sometimes we get overly ambitious on the protection and we lose the other things and lose sight of those other things. But Steve, if somebody's out there and they want to get in touch with you or learn more about you, how can they find you specifically? Amazon website? Like where would you like people to go right out the gate to like start their journey with
The
Steve?
website, it's Release the Coffee Cuffs, KUFFS.com. The book is available there. It's available on every platform in the world. Okay. And right now it's paperback and ebook.
Right.
I'm going to do an Audible version because 2 of my kids won't even read the book. They'll listen to it when
Yeah.
Are they entitled? Yeah, I guess so. Right. So
Audible.
anyway.
And I would highly recommend, and this is for you, Steve, and any other author out there. It's the process that I'm currently working on, and it's way cheaper today than it's ever been, is get these books transcribed in other languages. There's Spanish right out of the gate. If you're English speaking book, get it translated into Spanish right away. It's never been cheaper. Republish it as a Spanish book.
Yep.
And you just increased your audience size by a tremendous amount, especially if you got self-help books. It's a huge benefit. Steve, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate your time and having me on. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.